All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and we have two major topics to break down concerning the draft for the Washington Commanders. First up, the Washington Commanders are reportedly, from very trustworthy insider sources, meeting with running back Ashton Jeanty, formerly at the Combine. Are we potentially trading up for an elite generational running back prospect? Is he the next Saquon, the next Jahmyr? Is that what the Commanders are trying to achieve right here? Is it worth trading up for the guy, or should we just wait and get one of the other running backs? We're going to do a full dive all the way around of how good Ashton Jeanty is and if he's worth trading up for. And then also the second half of the video, we got to break down the fact the Washington Commanders apparently love Michigan players in the draft. You'll be surprised by how many games they went to directly. We'll see which top prospects in the draft from Michigan that may even be in range of the Commanders. Who could they potentially be targeting, and why were they going to so many games throughout this past college season? But before we get into everything, first of all, you already know this video is sponsored by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. And also, I have a trivia question for you. What player scored a team-leading 7 touchdowns for the Commanders in 2022? I feel like y'all probably know this answer. Like, it's a little tricky, but I'm gonna give y'all the answer at the end of the video. But make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for all of the support that y'all been pulling up and watching every video, liking every video, commenting on every video. And this is my second video today. If I find some time tonight, I may put out a third video like late tonight / early tomorrow morning. So be on the lookout for that, man. Your one-stop shop for everything Commanders, especially centered around free agency and draft. I got y'all. Without further ado, let's go dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so the Washington Commanders are one of 10 teams to meet formally with Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty. Either will meet with them or already have at some point this Combine week. That is very interesting because he's one of those guys that I've already put it out of my head that we have no chance of getting, at least before this report that came out just a couple of days ago. I mean, I literally haven't even gotten to the point where I've watched like all 22 film of his, like every snap, like I've done for Colston Jenkins and Travion Henderson and Omarion Hampton. We're going to talk about them later as well too, and try to see what like the relative value compared to Ashton Jeanty you will have to trade up in the first to get. Maybe you can wait till 29 to get Omarion Hampton, maybe even Travion Henderson there. You could probably get Colston Jenkins in the second, maybe even the third round. We're going to dive into that. But my point is, I've been watching tape on the guys that I felt like were realistic chances to land in Washington. Ashton Jeanty has not been one of those. I have not just sat down and looked at all 22 tape of his like I've done the other running backs. I've seen the highlights. I've watched him live a couple of times, but I've yet to just really sit down and break down like his weaknesses and strengths. Now, I have watched him enough to where I have like a relative comp for him. We're going to get to that soon. But my main point is, and I echo the same sentiments as a lot of Commanders fans in the comment sections of these reports saying that we will meet with Ashton Jeanty. I saw like a whole gif, the Hawkeye gif of "Don't give me hope," because man, don't meet with him and then there's just no way that we can get him. I assumed there was no way, there was 0 chance we could get him, or you know, with me being such a statistics guy, there's never a 0% chance. I'm gonna go 0.0001% chance that we go and get Ashton Jeanty. Now they're making it seem like maybe it's a slightly higher chance than that, but again, don't do this to my heart, man. Don't get my hopes up just for you to let me down, which is more than likely going to be the result. But let's get there. First of all, again, if you want to trade up for him, like that's what's literally gonna have to take, right? What would it cost to trade up for him? Like multiple, like next year's first included with the first, this 29th overall that you have to give up to move up to the range to get him? Like, what are we willing to give up? Would it be like a first and multiple twos, maybe a first, a second, and a third, a first and a couple of third? Like, I have no idea what the range is because people don't typically trade up for running backs. That is just not a typical thing. So the question is it worth it? Now, let's dive into Ashton Jeanty and who he is first and how amazing he is and see if, like, he's actually generational like a lot of people say. Well, Jordan Schultz, aka the Starbucks accoster of Ian Rappaport, he tweeted, "I just spoke with with a running backs coach here at the Combine in Indianapolis who met with all of the running backs. Every running back that was invited to the Combine, this running back coach has met with all of them. He knows what he's talking about. Here's what he told Jordan Schultz about Ashton Jeanty. Quote, love the kid. There's no way he falls outside of the 15 to 20 picks. And I'm not going to lie, for me, I think we're hard-pressed to assume that he even may make it past the Dallas Cowboys. We'll see, though. But he reminds me of a taller Maurice Jones-Drew. Bowling ball with speed. Guy will be an immediate superstar. Not a good running back, not a great running back, a superstar, basically, unquote. Like, he's basically saying this will be like the next Saquon Barkley, the next Bijan Robinson, next Jahmyr Gibbs, the next game changer. And shouts out to Mina Combs because she brought up a good point that when you add a running back like this to your offense, make sure you already have the foundation set. Make sure you already have an offensive line, which I believe we'll have by the time free agency is done. Before we get to the draft, I think we'll have a pretty good starting offensive line, at least better than what we had last year. I'm hoping we go get Alec Jackson to tackle, but whatever we decide to do, I'm confident in Adam Peters' ability to make sure we put together a solid offensive line before we even get to the draft to where we're even considering Ashton Jeanty. But her point was, Mina Combs said that the running back is supposed to come in and turbocharge an offense, which means the offense should already be good. Don't drop them in behind a bad offensive line with a bad quarterback, and then teams are stacking the box against them like they did in college. It didn't matter in college, but the NFL, maybe it will. Maybe that will be a way to slow him down. I mean, Saquon Barkley saw what he did with the Eagles compared to what he did with the Giants. You could be as great as you want as a running back, but there's only been so much you can do in a bad situation, in a bad environment, especially with a bad offensive line and a bad quarterback that's not demanding the defense to show attention towards the quarterback and the receivers. But again, her point is, make sure you already have a really good offensive line, at least a solid offensive line. Make sure you have some weapons on the outside to distract from the running back, and also make sure that you have not only a really good quarterback, but especially a dual threat quarterback. Specifically was her point like over a week ago at ESPN. And basically, Ashton Jeanty could be that. Basically how the Eagles already had the best offensive line in football. They already have the dual threat quarterback in Jalen Hurts, and they have AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. You just add that last puzzle piece, like that one last stone that Thanos needed, and then now everything is set off. Now you've turbocharged the offense. He can't come in and necessarily fix the offense, but if the offense already has a solid foundation, he could take it to higher levels. I see Ashton Jeanty as another guy just like that. And Maurice Jones-Drew, mind you, he was a second-team All-Pro, two-time first-team All-Pro, so 3 times he's been All-Pro, and 3-time Pro Bowl. And that running backs coach, who again, I mean, if anybody knows what he's talking about, it's him, has compared him to a taller Maurice Jones-Drew. You may even argue that he may be even a slightly more talented, like just overall, even like speed and things like that, even as a pass catcher, than Maurice Jones-Drew as well. And even Pro Football Focus, talking about how this is one of the best, arguably a generational talent. They listed their top 101 players from the previous 2024 college season. That's including guys that are entering the draft right now. Really anybody that participated at all in college last year. You don't even have to be draft eligible for this upcoming draft in April. Just the best college players, period. And out of 101 players, they have him second, and a lot of people agree. Of course, he's behind Georgia born and raised Travis Hunter, Heisman winner, you know what I'm saying? But running back Ashton Jeanty from Boise State, they have him number 2. And mind you, that Boise State offense was literally only Ashton Jeanty. Only. The offensive line, name me 2 offensive linemen from that Boise State offensive line right now. And let me know which one you would be willing to draft right now, or within like the next 2 years, if you want to maybe even include some freshmen in there. Point out any of them, please, especially if you're not a Boise State fan. Also, name me some wide receivers. And then the quarterback wasn't any good either. My point is, other defenses literally knew it was Ashton Jeanty as the first option, the second option, the third option, and then everybody else. It was Ashton Jeanty and the Gentiettes, basically, over there at Boise State. Defenses knew that all we have to do is stop him, and their offense can't do anything. And yet, he still couldn't be stopped. 8 in the box, cover 0, still out there, doing ridiculous things. Shouts out to Pro Football Focus. They pointed out the fact that Jeanty turned in an all-time great season and reset the Pro Football Focus rushing grade record at 96.6, the highest grade they've ever given to a college running back since Pro Football Focus has been doing their thing the past few years. He also set the Pro Football Focus college record in yards after contact and missed tackles forced by wide margins, while also challenging Barry Sanders' single-season rushing record, again on a team where defenses literally knew you are the only offense. We're only focused on stopping you, and they still couldn't. We may not see another performance like Jeanty had this year for a long time. Again, that's coming from Pro Football Focus. And I'm personally not down to one specific player comp for Jeanty yet. I mean, of course, you had the running backs coach said that he was a taller, maybe a more talented version of Maurice Jones-Drew. I'm probably going towards like a Alvin Kamara as like the closest player I can think of right now, but I think he's probably even like a faster version of Alvin Kamara. And then Ashton Jeanty himself at the Combine said his favorite running back growing up was Marshawn Lynch, which makes sense for his insane tackle breaking ability. But one thing that I do feel strongly about, no matter what comp you come up with, I think we can all agree that he has the potential to be like another Saquon Barkley, another Jahmyr Gibbs, have that level of impact and influence on an offense and a team, be that scary to an opposing defense. And if anybody would know, it's us. Us Commanders fans know better than anybody else that those level of running backs are game changers. From a team that had to play the Eagles twice last year compared to when we played the Eagles three times this year, the difference in Saquon Barkley was huge. Jahmyr Gibbs, our defense never stopped him. That was purely Ben Johnson did a better job of stopping Jahmyr Gibbs, his own running back, than our defense did. Shouts out to Ben Johnson for overthinking it and even having Jameson Williams, arguably the worst decision maker in the entire football with all of the gambling and stuff like that, throwing a pass on a crucial moment, an interception to Mike Sammerstill was the result. But shouts out to Ben Johnson for overthinking it. That's why, for my money, I like Cliff Kingsbury more than I like Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's a genius. I'm not going to take any credit away from him. I feel like he overthinks things a little too much. And that's my point. We never stopped Jahmyr Gibbs in that Lions game. They could have kept running with him over and over again. We literally had no answer at all. I mean, I'm not even sure why they ran the ball with David Montgomery as much as they did, let alone just stop running the ball, period. Jared Goff out there throwing interceptions left to right. Again, they had a receiver throwing interceptions. My point is, Saquon Barkley and Jahmyr Gibbs have shown us that they are virtually unstoppable. And then on top of that, when you have a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, who is better than the Eagles quarterback, better than the Detroit Lions quarterback, imagine what a talent of a running back like that could do when defenses have no choice but to focus on the quarterback. At least with the Eagles and the Lions, you can try to focus on Saquon. The problem is easier said than done. But I'm pretty sure most defensive game plans went in, we got to stop Saquon, we got to stop Jahmyr Gibbs. The problem was just figuring out how to do it. Even with Ashton Jeanty, there's no way a defensive coordinator is going to focus on him more than they focus on Jaden Daniels. So imagine how much he would help Jaden, how much Jaden would help him. I would love to get him, but again, now we're back to reality, back down to planet Earth. How far enough could he fall for the Commanders to even consider trading up for him? Because if he goes top 10, it's cooked. There's just no way. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, them Dallas Cowboys at 12, especially after the super regret of passing on Derrick Henry. Not only did they not end up with Derrick Henry, but they themselves said, nah, we're good. We don't need a Derrick Henry. And then Rico Dowdle played well against us, but overall they truly needed a Derrick Henry level of running back. Ashton Jeanty can definitely be that for them. And again, especially after the regret of not getting Derrick Henry, I don't see them passing up on an Ashton Jeanty. But even if they don't, but my point is, you probably got to trade up to number 11 just to be safe. Because even if the Cowboys put out misinformation there, like tell Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter, hey, we're planning on taking Ashton Jeanty at 12, just to force teams to trade up ahead of them, even though they don't plan on taking them, you can't risk it. You literally have to, if you really plan on having Ashton Jeanty, you have to at least get to pick 11, no matter where you're starting from. Sadly for us, we're in pick 29. That's too far away to trade up, especially for a running back, in my opinion. Now, I cannot tell you if they will or will not trade up for Ashton Jeanty at all, especially when it comes down to this first round. You know what I'm saying? Maybe something comes out of nowhere and then he has a random scandal off the field, like he's out here smoking weed through a gas mask or whatever, like that one tackle did. Like, it was like the morning of the draft too, where his draft stock plummeted. I can't remember his name right now. But either way, unless something crazy off the field happens, some random accusations, we get Brandon McManus again or something like that, I don't see him making it past 15, honestly. And again, from 29, that's a lot. Again, I cannot tell you if they will or will not trade up for Ashton Jeanty. I highly doubt it. But I will tell you that they're at least seriously considering it, because when you look at the list of teams that met with Mason Graham, another potential top 10 talent in this entire NFL draft, right? You have the Saints, Patriots, Cardinals, Jets, Raiders, Jaguars, Giants, and Browns. The Commanders are not on that list, right? We are not one of those teams that are meeting with Mason Graham, who is arguably at a bigger need at defensive tackle, especially after we trade or release Jonathan Allen, than even running back is for this team right now. And my point is, again, I'm not saying Commanders will trade up for Ashton Jeanty, but I guarantee you that they have at least discussed it, because they are not wasting their time with these formal player meetings at the combine. So if they're meeting with a player, they are seriously considering doing whatever it takes to get them, because they didn't meet with Mason Graham, but they met with Ashton Jeanty. So there's a strategy here. They have a clear focus on a set amount of players that they may be interested in getting at the top of the draft, trading up, doing whatever you got to do. I mean, they're not interviewing just every top player that's available in the draft. They're not interviewing Travis Hunter and all of these Abdul Carter and things like that. But they did, or at least they plan to interview Ashton Jeanty, and I think that does matter. So again, I'm not saying that it's likely to happen, but I'm also not saying that it's impossible. But the problem is, again, you have competition. Per Ryan Fowler, 10 teams have scheduled formal meetings with Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty. The Giants, Broncos, Vikings, Steelers, Colts, Bears, Chargers, Ravens, Saints, and now also the Commanders. It's crazy too, because he reported the first 9 one day, and then he came back like a day or two later and was like, oh yeah, by the way, add the Commanders to that list as well. So that's what sent the whole internet in a frenzy. I've just been so busy I haven't been able to talk about it until now. But Jeanty is widely considered to be the best running back prospect in recent years and could end up being a top 10 pick when it's all said and done. He will not participate in drills at the combine, but he will at his pro day, and I'm excited to watch that now, especially since there's even like a tiny slither of hope that maybe we're considering getting him. He's 21 years old. He spent 3 seasons at Boise State and ended up finishing second in the Heisman Trophy in 2024, of course, to the Georgia born and raised Travis Hunter. I mean, that's what we do, man. But for his career, Boise State, Jeanty appeared in 40 games, rushed for 4,769 yards with no help on 750 carries, 6.4 yards per carry, to go along with 80 receptions and 862 yards receiving and 56 total touchdowns. Insane. So going back to the trade up discussion, is it even worth it with how much value you'd have to give up in return to get up to a pick where you're even in range to get him? I mean, I love Jeanty as much as anybody else, but trading up for a running back feels crazy. I don't even remember the last time a team has traded up, especially in the first round, for a running back. Maybe like, a team is in the middle of the 5th round, they'll trade up to early 5th round to get a running back that they like. That we're not talking about that. When was the last time a team has traded up from in the 20s to in the 10s, early 10s for a running back? Has that ever happened? I mean, maybe you can go back to the days where running backs ran the NFL before this was a quarterback league, but that's just unheard of. And then especially with as deep as this running back class is, with names like I mentioned earlier, Amarian Hampton, Travion Henderson, and Quinton Judkins. I mean, at least one of them will make it to us in the first round of the draft. More than likely, even to our second round pick as well. Quite likely that 1 or 2 of them are there even in our second round. So do you trade up for generational talent? According to most people, or just wait and take a great back in the 2nd and 3rd round? Because check this out. As you can see on the screen right now, and shouts out to this Eagles fans, Bertimus right here on Reddit, because, hey, finally the Eagles did something good for the greater good of everybody, because he put together a list of the history of the first running back drafted by year, and then the best running back that ended up coming from that draft. So 2000, you have Jamal Lewis, and then Sean Alexander was the best running back, right? Follow me. LaDainian Tomlinson. Now, he was the first running back taken. He ended up being the best one. And hey, shouts out LaDainian, because he's one of the main reasons I'm a big football fan as I am. The black visor was just so cool to me when I was like, I don't know how old I was, like 5 or 6 or something like that. He was one of my favorite players to watch of all time. He's the reason why every Madden game I played, especially as an elementary school kid with like Vic and Ray Lewis in the cover, I was doing the black visor every time. But 2002, you had William Green. Westbrook was the best running back, you could definitely argue. Willis McGahee, Steven Jackson. Steven Jackson was so fun to win, but those were the best running backs, first ones taken as well. Then 2005, you have Ronnie Brown. Frank Gore was the best running back, especially with the most longevity. Golly, Frank Gore. 2006, Reggie Bush. Maurice Jones-Drew ended up being the best running back. And then 2007, Adrian Peterson. Now, come on now. Out of any running back that I've watched in my lifetime, I'm not going back to like Herschel Walker and all of those great running backs of the past, or Bo Jackson. I'm not talking about those guys that far back. I'm just talking about since I've known what football was and could understand the sport and knew what I was watching while watching it analytically, Adrian Peterson is the best running back I've ever seen coming out of college. So I felt like that was a super safe bet there. I love Ashton Jeanty, but I still don't have him over Adrian Peterson coming out of college. And then 2008, you have Darren McFadden. Ended up technically being Chris Johnson, especially that historical 2,000-yard season. Then no Sean Marino. Hey, as a Georgia guy, rock with you, but LaShawn McCoy does have you. 2010, CJ Spiller. I mean, you definitely can argue that Ryan Matthews ended up being better. 2011, that was a good running back draft because Mark Ingram was still a really good running back, but you can argue that DeMarco was better. Then Trent Richardson, I mean, that running back class, even Hamster, And then 2013, Giovanni Bernard, good running back, but he wasn't Le'Veon Bell. But then again, most people overlook Le'Veon Bell because he wasn't that fast. And somebody's probably going to do that with one of these running backs in this class is my point. Bishop Sankey, Devonta Freeman ended up being the better running back. My Georgia dog, Todd Gurley, man. Injuries, I hate injuries so much because the injuries took away one of the greatest talents in NFL history, regardless of position, and my dog, Todd Gurley. I wish he could have played more because he definitely would have went in history as one of the best running backs of all time. Then 2016, Ezekiel Elliott was great. But you could definitely argue that Derrick Henry was better, especially longevity-wise. Leonard Fournette, he served his purpose. He was pretty good. But Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara were definitely better. Saquon, now he made this Reddit post 2 years ago, so you got to excuse him. Even as a Georgia Bulldog fan, Nick Chubb, at first, up till maybe 2022, you can definitely say was the better running back. But after what we know in 2024, even as a Georgia Bulldog fan, I'm going to have to give it to Saquon. Then Josh Jacobs, him. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he served his purpose for what the Chiefs wanted, but Jonathan Taylor was definitely the better running back. But at the same time, Jonathan Taylor is coming out of the draft he came out with a lot of wear and tear on him. I even said it before he was drafted. I was like, talent-wise, he's the best running back in this class, but expect him to be injury prone because when he gets to the NFL, because he was the entire offense for, what was it, Wisconsin? One of those super, always putting out a bunch of great offensive linemen and great running backs type of teams, never really known for their quarterbacks. He was carrying that team on his back for multiple years. So I wasn't surprised when he got to the NFL and he's injury prone. Still a great talent, but that takes me to my point of Ashton Jeanty having to carry that team and all of that mileage on them compared to like a Quiston Junkins and Travion Henderson, even though their stats don't look as good because they had the split snaps in the backfield, split carries and everything like that, split touches. At least they're coming into the NFL a little fresher. So there may be even better value from getting them in the second round over in Ashton Jeanty in the first round, just off of the fact that you can expect them to have longer careers, longer lasting, more durable careers. Then moving on to 2021, Najee Harris, up for grabs. We'll see. 2022, Breece Hall. I'm fairly confident he'll end up being one of the better ones there. And then don't forget that there were great running backs even outside of the names that you just saw on that list. We have guys that were taken in the second, third, or fourth rounds and even later, like Aaron Jones, great running back taken in I don't remember what round he was, but he was definitely a day 3 running back. Chris Carson, Marlon Mack, Tariq Cohen, Elijah Mitchell, Tony Pollard, even if it was just in spurts, still really good running backs, especially for the value that you got in day 3 of the draft. And then you have Bucky Irvin, 4th round pick. And I'm not gonna lie, he's one of the guys that I'm most proud of, my draft analysis and projections going into the NFL. Jordan Mailata is probably my number 1. Bucky Irvin's at least in my top 5 because I was screaming, how is Bucky Irvin being overlooked like this? Please, Commanders, get him. You can go back and look at my mock drafts. I included him in more than one of them. I stopped including him in my mock drafts because I was like, all right, I've already talked about him enough. Y'all get the point. I really want Bucky Irvin. So I was shocked when he made it to the 4th round, but at the end of the day, he was a 4th round pick. He was the 6th running back taken in the class, and you see what he just did. And then my Georgia dog, James Cook, 2nd rounder. Isaiah Pacheco, 7th rounder. Javonte Williams, dog before the injury, 2nd rounder. David Montgomery, 3rd rounder. Or even our very own Austin Eckler, who was at MVP conversations just a couple of years ago. He went undrafted. He was like the football fantasy king a couple of years ago. Literally winning people their fantasy football leagues single-handedly, and he was undrafted. So Ashton Jeanty, a potentially game-changer running back? Yes. But worth giving up 1st round picks, multiple picks to trade up for? Not for me personally. But now let's move on to the second half of this video. But before we do, you already know this show is provided by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. And if you're looking for a new sportsbook, it should be BetUS for sure. And did y'all know that BetUS also has a casino? For all of my followers who like slots, live casino dealers, make sure y'all take advantage of BetUS's crazy sign-up bonus deals. You can get a 200% sign-up bonus for up to $5,000 or a 250% crypto sign-up bonus for up to $5,000 as well. Test your skills with timeless classics, explore the newest and hottest slots, and feel that casino buzz with the BetUS live dealer tables. Now let's take a look at some bets that we can get into directly through their website. And hey, in the spirit of talking about Ashton Jeanty, even though we're very low in the odds, as you can see on the screen right now, at plus 2,800 tied with the Houston Texans, who, you know, right now our name is attached to the Houston Texans in more than one way. That Deebo Samuel video I just did earlier, right now we're the top 2 most likely landing spots for Deebo Samuel, and then we're also tied together at the exact same odds for getting Ashton Jeanty, which is pretty amazing. But my point is, hey, we're higher than I expected. I'm surprised we're even in the top 20 with the 29th overall pick. So I'm amazed there. But, and you also see the Dallas Cowboys at plus 250 with the highest odds right now. But if you believe that at plus 2,800 odds, we will somehow find a way to get Ashton Jeanty on the Washington Commanders, if you put down $25, you can win $700 by the time the first round ends, because he's going in the first round, or at the very least by the end of April, you could have turned $25 into $700. But of course, those odds are very slim, and I'm always scream at y'all to please gamble responsibly. But if you love Ashton Jeanty and you feel like there's a real serious case for him landing on the Commanders, there you go. And again, right now, BetUS is offering you a 200% sign-up bonus for up to $5,000, or a 250% crypto sign-up bonus for up to $5,000 as well through their casinos. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get to the second half of this video. Let's talk about these Michigan players, man. And I'm glad we're talking about Michigan right now, because if it were a bunch of Georgia Bulldogs, everybody would be calling me biased and everything. So it's cool that everybody knows I'm completely neutral here. Shouts out to my boy Ken Johannesson at Burgundy Burner on Twitter. If you're not following him, you're missing out, especially as a Commanders fan, because he always is like a super insider and knows first a lot of the times for like when we meet with draft prospects and things like that. He reported just 2 days ago that the Washington Commanders had scouts at 5 different University of Michigan football games during the 2024 season. So whatever they saw in that first one, they felt like it wasn't enough. After they went to the second one, we need to go a third time. After that time, we need to go a fourth. And then they went a fifth. And who knows if they maybe even went more than that than what's reported. Either way, though, there's some clear, definitive interest in at least one top Michigan player coming out of this draft. You have Mason Graham, who a lot of people feel like is a top 10 talent. You have Will Johnson, who's arguably a top 10 talent as well. You have Kenneth Grant, who's probably a top 20. Colston Loveland, who's probably a top 20 as well. I would argue, in my personal opinion, a top 10 talent at tight end, but maybe not everybody's as high on him as possible as I am. And then you have Josiah Stewart, who's a top 50 talent. Now let's dive into each of them one by one. Well, shouts out to Ryan Wilson of CBS Sports, because when it comes to Mason Graham, he just did a mock draft a few days ago. He has Cam Ward going first overall to the Titans, and then Mason Graham going second overall out of the entire draft to the Cleveland Browns. Now, granted, after his measurables just came in from the combine, he may slip in some draft boards. It's less likely he goes second overall, but he's still a top 10 talent if you just watch the tape and don't overthink it. Yeah, the combine matters, but if you love somebody on tape, don't let combine results like completely change your opinion on somebody. So I'm still thinking that Mason Graham, I mean, we would be lucky if he somehow got in range for the Commanders to get him, but I think he's a top 10 talent. There's no way with the 29th overall pick. But he said his comp for Mason Graham this summer was Christian Wilkins. But then he said his co-host on the With the First Pick podcast, Rick Spielman, who helped build the Washington Commanders, who helped hire Adam Peters, so salute to Rick Spielman there, took it a step further and said Quinnen Williams as a comp. And I'm not gonna lie, from the little bit that I've watched of them, I'm not gonna sit here and lie to y'all and act like I've just watched hours on hours of every draft prospect. Again, with us having the 29th pick, some guys that I just assume we have no chance at, I haven't done like sat down and watched all 22 tape, but I have watched Mason Graham highlights and I have watched them live, and I think I watched like one all 22 game of them. I don't remember exactly which game it was, but I watched a game like every snap wise. But my point is, I haven't watched enough Mason Graham for me to feel like I can give a comp. But when I was watching them, it did give me shades of Quinnen Williams a little bit. They also said wherever you land, Graham is a special talent who headlines a deep defensive line class. And that's a good point. A lot of people are saying this is arguably the deepest defensive line class arguably of all time. Daniel Jeremiah said there are 24 starters, and most people would agree that Mason Graham is the best out of all of those 24 defensive tackles in this class. So he deserves some respect. But at the same time, I don't think he's going to make it to 29. Then moving on to cornerback Will Johnson, who is somebody a lot of Commanders fans wanted since this time last year. I remember we were literally saying things in 2024, back in February, early March. Can't wait for that 2025 draft next year because we want to get Will Johnson. And that was before, the 2024 draft happened, let alone this 2025 one coming up. But back to the point, I see a lot of Trevon Diggs comps, but when I watch him personally, I think he's a bigger Trent McDuffie, especially like as a ceiling. Now, Trent McDuffie is a top 3 corner, at least he played like it last year, so I'm not going to sit here and say that Will Johnson is just going to go into the NFL and immediately be a taller Trent McDuffie, but I think that is a good ceiling comp for him. I think Trevon Diggs is like a safe comp. I think he can eventually at some point become a taller Trent McDuffie. Again, we'll love to have him, but there's just no way he nor Mason Graham make it to the Commanders with that 29th overall pick. So moving on to other top Michigan draft prospects that we must have been at that game for potentially. We're going to find them. So how about next up, defensive tackle Kenneth Grant? I mean, he has everything you want in a defensive tackle. I mean, he looks physically dominant at times. He's a little raw, but when you're talking about physical attributes and potential, he's arguably one of the most talented players in this entire draft. Again, when I say physically dominant, there are some times where offensive linemen look like they have no hope of blocking him, especially if he keeps his pad level low. Right now, that's his problem, though. He's a little raw. He definitely lacks stamina, like my boy Jordan Davis, where he comes in sparingly for the Eagles, and then he has pretty inconsistent low pad level, so he has to work on that. But hey, man, I would definitely take my chances on him and hope that you can coach him any day if he somehow fell to us. But like I've been saying, to help our run stopping, especially after we move on from a Jonathan Allen, we need a 320-pounder at defensive tackle. No more 280-pound defensive tackles that are almost like tweeners. You can maybe even play them at defensive end like Jonathan Allen. There's an argument to be made. He could play 3-4 defensive end, all of this type of stuff. No, I wanted a definitive defensive tackle that, if anything, if you want to play them at a different position, then how about zero tech nose tackle? I want them that big, like a better version of John Ridgeway, basically. And that boy, Kenneth Graham, is at like in the 330s or something like that. I saw somewhere that he may even be up to 340, and that's more than enough. And I'll probably do a deeper dive on his draft profile in another video down the line, since he may make it into like the 20s of the draft. So maybe if we really want him, we may even trade up for him. That will cost us way less value. Maybe we have to give up our 29th pick to maybe move up to like 24, and maybe we include like a 3rd rounder. Nothing crazy. I'm not sure if I'm willing to do that, but it wouldn't be as dramatic as trading up for Ashton Jeanty in the top 12. But my point is, as far as a comp for this guy, I think second team all-pro season version of Don Terry Poe. I think he's that good, and he's going to be that dominant of a defensive tackle. Maybe not immediately, because again, there's some rawness there, but once he figures it out, he's going to be insane. Also, not going to lie, even though I doubt Kenneth Grant makes it to us in the 1st round, we'll see, but let's just keep digging down even further. How about Colston Loveland, the tight end? And his draft projection is weird because I truly believe he's a top 15 player just based off of talent, just purely talent. But at the same time, this is a really good tight end class. And some teams may let him fall because they find it, say, more valuable in a scenario where they take another position in the 1st round and then they take another really good tight end outside of Colston Loveland in the 2nd round. Even though that tight end will not be, or at least draft prospect wise, doesn't seem like he'll be as good as Loveland, still, there's that chance that some people may strategize like that. So maybe there's a slim chance, but I still doubt it that he falls in range for us to trade up for him, and I highly doubt he makes it to pick 29. I mean, he literally looks like a blend of Greg Olsen or like a better blocking version of Mike Gesicki. I mean, I would literally trade up for a guy like that, me personally. So why would a team that already has a top 20 pick not just go ahead and take them with their natural pick of not having to trade up? And I guess that's the reward for being worse than the Commanders in 2024. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to send my shots. Y'all are lucky y'all are drafting sooner, but at what cost? For being sorry. But this is another guy that I can't wait to do a longer video breakdown on, just like Kenneth Grant, but that'll be later down on in the line of videos that I'm doing, especially after we get through free agency. We've signed off free agents and we're just focused solely on the draft. That's when I'm gonna start getting to people like that. And then lastly, instead of sitting here and diving into every single player who even wore a Michigan uniform this last season, we're going to finish up here with edge rusher Josiah Stewart, who a lot of people see as like a top 50 player. Luckily for us, people mostly see him as like a mid-2nd round prospect, so the Commanders should definitely have him available at pick 29 in the 1st round, but also we can maybe even trade back and get him back like into the 2nd round and still get him, or maybe we can even just wait till he makes it to our 2nd round pick to maybe get him, our natural 2nd round pick. But quick and to the point real quick, and this is just another guy that I'm gonna do a deeper dive into in a future video, and I really want to do one on him just because he's a little less talked about than everybody else I've named so far. But my comp for him, if he can reach his ceiling, is Hassan Reddick without all of the issues. Because I completely agree with NFL Draft Files on Twitter when he said this. When I was watching this tape, these were some of the exact thoughts I had. NFL Draft Files on Twitter said Josiah Stewart is a pass rushing savant. He put up 9 sacks and 37 pressures in 2024 with an incredible best in class 27.3 pass rush win rate. Out of all edge rushers in this entire class, with a very deep, very potent edge rusher class, he had the highest pass rush win rate out of all of them. And then concerns over size, of course, though, 6 foot, 241 pounds, and run defense translating to the NFL are prevalent. We need run defense bad here. That was one of our biggest issues last season. However, he'll be a dynamic day 2 pass rusher. And then he even did like check marks, like a checklist. Freshman AA, 15 sacks, All-American. Number 1 P4 pass rush win rate, again, out of all college edge rushers. Not even just draft eligible guys. All edge rushers that did anything in the Power 4 this past college season, he has the highest pass rush win rate. Then he said pure speed rusher, natural leverage, duck and dip, speed to power, and punches above his weight class. The problem is outlier for size for edge, just like my Georgia dog Jalen Walker. He's a little too small for edge in some people's eyes, even though I think he can literally be like a Micah Parsons-like player. That's why Micah Parsons is literally taking him under his wing. And then he's a little bit too big for you to depend on him in coverage as an all-ball linebacker. That's kind of where Josiah Stewart is right now, where he's a little too small for edge, but he really can't play anything else. And then he also said that he lacks OTB experience. I would agree with all of that. I think that's all fair. So in conclusion, all of these players that we've discussed are great players that we would be lucky to have. But Josiah Stewart is the only one out of everybody that we talked about today, out of all these Michigan players, or even going back to Ashton Jeanty, that I see us making it to even pick 29 for us to get, or even getting in relative range for us to trade up and get them with a trade that makes sense. But they all went to those games for a reason. And I have not heard about us going to other school games as much as Michigan. Not saying that our scouts and coaches didn't go to other schools' games at all, or especially as much, but we just haven't heard confirmation from a trustworthy source or any other team yet. So don't be surprised if we go and get one of these guys that we just talked about. Make sure when you're trying to do your mock drafts, hey, you may want to filter by Michigan. Or maybe they're just targeting like a day 3 guy from Michigan that we didn't talk about in this video, like one of those running backs that make it to like the 5th, 6th, or 7th round or something like that. Maybe they're looking at a 6th or a 7th rounder from Michigan and not one of these top 2 round guys, because Michigan has a weird scenario where if you look at all of their draft eligible prospects, it's like they're all either going in the top 2 rounds or you're not drafting them until like the 5th or 6th round or something like that. So they're pretty interesting. So I'm curious to see where the Commanders are targeting a Michigan player. And on top of us potentially getting like one of these Michigan guys, I feel like a lot of people will overlook the fact, like an underrated additional benefit of us taking one of these great Michigan talents is that, one, Mike Sainristil will be very happy, and he would also more than likely vouch to the Commanders to draft one of these guys because he knows their study habits, their film study habits, all of that type of stuff, how they are on and off the field. But also, that rookie would have a far easier transition to the NFL with Mike Sainristil basically taking that rookie under his wing and showing them how to do things around here. And I'm not talking about how just how Dan Quinn wants his players to act, think, move, eat, feel, and all of that. I'm also talking about where to go for this, like who to talk to for this, when to do that, and even things as random as like the best restaurants in the area. Like he would already come in to a friend in the locker room. I feel like that would be a seamless transition there. Or even like as important as the best way to set up your daily schedule in rookie minicamp. How about when to set your alarm for OTAs? How do you prepare for mandatory minicamp? How do you get your body right for training? All that type of stuff. Like when do you film study? How do you film study when you're in there doing it? Like so many things that we don't see behind the scenes as fans. I think Mike Sainristil can make it way easier for a Michigan alum. He would have like basically a partner in crime in the locker room. And Mike Sainristil is already a funny and fun guy to be around. I feel like that would only add to it. Also, the Eagles just won a Super Bowl, not only after drafting a bunch of my Georgia Bulldogs, but also they gave the Georgia Bulldogs huge credit for why they were able to get to the Super Bowl. And they even said that the Bulldogs players not only are credited for the Super Bowl, but credited for the culture of the entire franchise. And that's coming from their starting quarterback in Jalen Hurts and their elite general manager in Howie Roseman. That he even admitted that he hated having to draft so many Bulldogs because he's not a Bulldog fan at all. But the proof is in the pudding. You can't avoid it. My point is, Michigan won last year's championship before the one that Ohio State just won just last month. Why don't we bring in some more winners as well? That was our our strategy with Alabama. It didn't necessarily work with Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Cam Sims, and a few of those guys. But, hey, it worked out very well. Us bringing in one Michigan guy, Mike Sanders, still last draft. I mean, he doesn't even fit the Dan Quinn type of corner at all. Very undersized. But Sanders still definitely has that alpha mentality that's undeniable and couldn't be ignored or skipped in the draft. And it paid off in a huge way for us last season. So why not take that chance again with one of these guys that come in with that certain winning culture and expectation of winning like these Michigan players do? And then before we get up out of here, just want to update y'all on the fact, and this was announced a couple of days ago, but the NFL says its plan is to put its electronic system to measure first downs into motion this upcoming regular season in 2025. The chain crew, the humans, will remain on the sideline as a backup, but it seems like they're on a full go for this one. And I've been talking to y'all about this for the past couple of years, about the NFL potentially previewing it, testing it. It sounds like in 2025 we'll officially have electronic measurements for the first downs, and that's annoying to me because we would have beat the Steelers if they already had this implemented for last season. But it is what it is. We would have beat Pittsburgh, but I'm not gonna cry about it. We still made it to the NFC Championship. We made it further than the Steelers made it, so it is what it is. Water under the bridge. But just to give y'all a heads up, and as you can notice, I don't know if y'all have noticed this, but in my videos I try to include some random NFL did you know news just so we can stay well-rounded fans, not only just Commanders fans, but NFL fans. So I'll talk about some Commanders stuff. Then at the very end, I'll give you a couple of NFL updates just to make sure you know what's going on all around the NFL universe right now and things like that. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned, follow the content. I really appreciate y'all. If you made it this far in the video, I'm 42 minutes into recording. I salute you. You are the GOAT. Really appreciate that. Again, do not leave this video without leaving a like, and I promised you a trivia question answer at the end of the video. The answer is rookie wide receiver Jahan Dotson. Just in case if y'all forgot that, I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all already knew that before I even told you the answer, but salute to all of y'all that did. And I thought that was a pretty cool trivia question right there, where it wasn't like super obvious. You had to at least think a little bit to get that one. Either way though, that's your February 28th trivia question of the day. And again, I really appreciate y'all. Definitely let me know in the comment section how you feel about this whole Ashton Jeanty situation. Do you prefer to just get like a Amarian Hampton at 29, Travion Henderson at 29 of the second round, Quiston Junkins in the second round? Do you prefer that rather than trading up Ashton Jeanty? Do you think the Commanders are actually even seriously talking about maybe trading up for Ashton Jeanty? Maybe they know something off the field that maybe there's a reason he'll fall to them. Let me know how you feel about that. And of course, let me know how you feel about all of those Michigan players that I talked about. And do you feel like the Commanders are very likely to take another Michigan player, especially after the successful pick of a Mike Sanders still last year and the fact that they went to 5 Michigan games this past college season? Let me know how you feel about all of that. And of course, remember this video is sponsored by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. And if you don't do nothing else, please make sure you gamble responsibly and leave a like on the way out. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.